The nation of Israel, after being freed from the bondage of Egypt, had made its way through the wilderness and was now encamped on the plains of Moab, across the Jordan River from the city of Jericho. The Israelites had already conquered two powerful kings, Sihon and Og, and the news of their victories had spread far and wide. Balak, the king of Moab, was deeply troubled by the presence of the Israelites on his borders. He was afraid that these battle-hardened warriors would turn their attention to his kingdom next. Balak knew that he could not defeat the Israelites through military force alone, so he decided to use a different tactic. He sent messengers to a man named Balaam, who was renowned for his ability to pronounce blessings and curses. Balaam was a complex figure. On the one hand, he was a prophet of the Lord, capable of receiving divine visions and messages. But on the other hand, he was also known to practice divination and sorcery, which were explicitly forbidden by the God of Israel. Balak's messengers arrived at Balaam's home and delivered the king's request, "Come now, curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them from the land, for I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed." Balaam was intrigued by Balak's offer. The prospect of receiving a substantial monetary reward for his services was certainly appealing. But Balaam also knew that he could not simply disregard the will of the Lord. He told the messengers to stay the night, and he would seek the Lord's guidance on the matter. That night, the Lord spoke to Balaam and said, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed." Balaam dutifully relayed this message to Balak's messengers the next morning, and they returned to their king with the disappointing news. But Balak was not deterred. He sent even more prestigious officials to Balaam, offering him even greater riches and honors if he would come and curse the Israelites. Again, Balaam sought the Lord's counsel, and again the Lord told him, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed." Frustrated but still determined, Balaam told the messengers, "Go now to your own land, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." But the crafty prophet had a plan. He would go, but only if the Lord gave him explicit permission to do so. Balaam knew that if he could get the Lord to change his mind, then he would be free to curse the Israelites without any moral qualms. The next morning, Balaam saddled his donkey and set out to meet with Balak. But as he was traveling, something extraordinary happened. The donkey suddenly veered off the road and started walking through a field. Balaam angrily struck the donkey, trying to get it back on the path. But then the donkey squeezed itself against a wall, crushing Balaam's foot. Furious, Balaam beat the donkey again. Suddenly, the donkey spoke in a human voice, saying, "What have I done to you, that you have struck me these 3 times?" Balaam was astonished. He had never heard a donkey speak before. "Because you have made a mockery of me," he replied. "If I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." The donkey then said, "Am I not your donkey, on which you have ridden all your life long to this day? Is it my habit to treat you this way?" Balaam was taken aback. "No," he admitted. At that moment, the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. The angel had been standing in the path, blocking the way, which is why the donkey had veered off. Balaam immediately fell face down to the ground. The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to oppose you because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned aside before me these 3 times. If it had not turned aside from me, surely just now I would have killed you and let it live." Balaam said to the angel, "I have sinned, for I did not know that you stood in the road against me. Now therefore, if it is evil in your sight, I will turn back." The angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but speak only the word that I tell you." So Balaam went on with the princes of Balak. When Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him at the city of Herhias, on the border of the Arnon, at the farthest point of his territory. Balak greeted Balaam warmly and led him to a high place where he could see the edge of the Israelite camp. Balak then said to Balaam, "Curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me." perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them from the land." But Balaam replied, "How can I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce whom the Lord has not denounced? For from the top of the crags I see him, from the hills I behold him. Behold, a people dwelling alone, and not counting itself among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob or number the fourth part of Israel? Let me die the death of the upright, and let my end be like his." Balak was stunned. This was not the response he had expected from the famous prophet. Angrily, he said to Balaam, "What have you done to me? I brought you to curse my enemies, and behold, you have blessed them instead." Balaam calmly explained, "Must I not take care to speak what the Lord puts in my mouth?" Balak, still determined to get the curse he wanted, took Balaam to a different vantage point and tried again. But once more, Balaam proclaimed a blessing over the Israelites, rather than a curse. Balak's anger was growing. He said to Balaam, "Neither curse them at all, nor bless them at all." But Balaam knew that he could only speak the words that the Lord gave him. He replied, "Did I not tell you all that the Lord says that I must do?" Balak, realizing he was fighting a losing battle, took Balaam to one final location, the top of Mount Peor, overlooking the whole expanse of the Israelite camp. Surely from this vantage point, Balaam would be able to see the enormity of the Israelite forces and be compelled to curse them. But once again, when Balaam opened his mouth, the words that came out were a blessing, not a curse. "How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your encampments, O Israel! Like palm groves that stretch afar, like gardens beside a river, like aloes that the Lord has planted, like cedar trees beside the waters. He shall pour water from his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters. His king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted." Balak was furious. He struck his hands together and said to Balaam, "I called you to curse my enemies, and behold, you have blessed them these 3 times. Now therefore flee to your own place. I said, I will certainly honor you, but the Lord has held you back from honor." Balaam replied, "Did I not tell your messengers whom you sent to me, if Balak should give me his house full of silver and gold, I would not be able to go beyond the word of the Lord, to do either good or bad of my own will? What the Lord speaks, that I must speak." Balaam then proceeded to prophesy even further about the future of Israel and its enemies. Balak, completely defeated, dismissed Balaam and returned to his own land. As for Balaam, he went back to his home as well. But the story of the talking donkey and the stubborn prophet who could only speak the words that God gave him had etched itself into the memory of the Israelites forever. This remarkable tale is found in the book of Numbers, chapters 22 to 24. It is a story that reveals the sovereignty of God, the limitations of human power, and the folly of trying to oppose the purposes of the Almighty. Through this narrative, we see that even a pagan diviner like Balaam was compelled to bless the people of Israel, because they were the chosen and beloved of God. The key figures in this story are, of course, Balaam, Balak, and the talking donkey. Balaam was a complex character. On the one hand, he was a prophet who could receive divine visions and messages. But on the other hand, he was also known to practice the occult arts of divination and sorcery, which were forbidden by the God of Israel. When Balak, the king of Moab, sought Balaam's help to curse the Israelites, Balaam knew that he could not simply disregard the will of the Lord. Yet the prospect of the substantial reward that Balak offered was enticing. Balak, for his part, was a fearful and desperate king. He had seen the military successes of the Israelites, and he was terrified that they would turn their attention to his own kingdom next. He thought that if he could get Balaam to curse the Israelites, it would weaken them and make them vulnerable to attack. Balak's efforts to manipulate the situation to his advantage, however, were ultimately futile. And then there is the talking donkey, which is perhaps the most memorable and bizarre element of the story. When Balaam set out to meet with Balak, the donkey he was riding suddenly veered off the road and started walking through a field. Balaam struck the donkey in anger, but then the donkey spoke in a human voice, asking Balaam why he had struck it. This supernatural event was a way for God to get Balaam's attention and make him aware of the angel of the Lord standing in the road, blocking his path. The story of Balaam, Balak, and the talking donkey is a powerful reminder that God is sovereign and that his plans cannot be thwarted by human machinations. Balak thought he could use Balaam's powers of divination to defeat the Israelites, but he failed to reckon with the fact that the Israelites were under the protection of the Almighty. Balaam, for his part, learned that he could only speak the words that God put in his mouth, no more and no less. The talking donkey was a dramatic way for God to get Balaam's attention and make him aware of the spiritual realities that were at play. Balaam had been blinded to the angel of the Lord standing in the road, but the donkey's miraculous speech opened his eyes to the truth. This episode serves as a powerful reminder that God can use any means necessary to communicate with his people and to accomplish his purposes. The story of Balaam, Balak, and the talking donkey is not just a quirky Bible tale, it is a profound exploration of the nature of God's sovereignty and the limitations of human power. It teaches us that no matter how determined we may be to thwart the will of God, we will ultimately fail. The Almighty is in complete control, and his plans will come to pass, regardless of our efforts to oppose them. This story also reminds us of the importance of obedience to God's word. Balaam knew that he could only speak the words that the Lord put in his mouth, yet he was tempted by the prospect of financial gain and honor. In the end, his decision to submit to God's will proved to be the right one, even though it cost him the reward he had been promised by Balak. The story of Balaam, Balak, and the talking donkey is a powerful and unforgettable narrative that has captivated readers and listeners for centuries. It is a testament to the sovereignty of God and the futility of human attempts to thwart his divine purposes. Through this remarkable tale, we are reminded that the Almighty is in complete control, and that our best course of action is to submit to his will and trust in his plan for our lives.